All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to texture the ground. So, ground texture. One thing to note, we're texturing the actual ground itself, like the plane. The rocks, to change the materials for those, they're done. You actually need to put materials on these rocks themselves. So we're only changing the material now for the actual ground itself, okay? Just make a note of that. I'm going to turn the specularity off for the ground. We're going to add a texture. Texture I'm going to add is one that should be included in the .zip, and this is sandy rocky, okay? And that's what it looks like. I'm not sure where I took the photo of that texture from. Maybe on the beach or something. Maybe walking along a bushwalk. I can't really remember. Anyway, irrelevant. Only thing really needing to change is here. No, here in the image mapping. Under repeat, we're going to change it to 1515 because this is a tileable texture. You can get away with using repeat values. I'm also going to turn on the bump mapping. Okay, so let's just see how that looks right now. Just with the ground now textured. The rocks are going to look the same, but the ground is going to be a little bit different. Cool. I think the bump mapping might be a little bit extreme, so I might just turn that down a touch, something like that. And also, I'm going to turn down the redness of the dirt and increase the blueness of it, just to make it a kind of more paler, neutral looking color, because we're going to be doing some color correction later, and we want it to kind of blend in with the rocks, so this is something we need to do. Awesome. All right. Now let's go ahead and texture the rocks, okay? So for the rocks, I'm just going to select this one here, and I'm going to call it rock material. I'm going to turn the specularity down to a 0.2, so it's not too shiny looking. Going over to the texture panel, going to add a new texture. This is one that should be provided in the .zip. Again, it's called brown layered. Took that photo on a bushwalk, I think, of some rocks on the ground. And it's a seamless, tileable texture, so you can get away with doing repeat if you want. We're not going to, though. Under the mapping options, we need to change it from flat to cube. I'm going to turn on the bump map again, like we did before, set it at 0.1, something like that. And just so we can tell the difference between which ones have got the texture, the material, and which ones don't. Oh, there we go. Yeah, they've already all got the textures. Anyway, if you find that, yeah, one of them has the material and the others don't, you just need to select all of them like that, then hit Control L and then select materials, and then it's going to copy the material that the object you last selected, and they're going to place it all over all of the rocks. So just something to note. Okay, cool. All right, let's give that a render now, and the rocks should now be looking good, hopefully. Awesome. All right, now you're probably wondering, what about those hideous black shadows? Because if you hold your little cursor over it and click, you can actually see the color value. And that is solid red 0, green 0, and blue 0. That's a solid black right there. There is no light hitting the backs of those rocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to be adding some environment lighting. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to get a drink because my voice is getting dry. Oh, that's better. Whew. Awesome. Yes, so we're going to be using some environment lighting to kind of create, some even lighting over everything. It's kind of a new feature in Blender. We didn't have this. If you're from like another 3D software package and you're just watching this tutorial for giggles, Blender didn't have this feature for a very long time, but now it does. So yeah, how do you like that? So we're going to enable environment lighting, and we're going to change it from white to sky color, okay? Now the sky color is actually this one here, this zenith color, and I'm going to make this kind of a bluish kind of color like that. Something like that should be fine. And I'm also going to turn on ambient occlusion. I'm going to set that to multiply, and that's just going to kind of fake, what would you call it? Faking kind of the shadows, like when objects get closer to one another, there's like the faking shadowy area towards the bottom. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying sometimes. Anyway, you can see now the backs of the rocks have a nice blue tint to it. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to get into some more fancy stuff. We're going to drop some mountains in the background. not probably what you would expect in a standard tutorial to just suddenly jump into creating some complex mountains, but it is actually quite easy in Blender because we have a new plugin, okay? The plugin isn't enabled by default, so you need to turn it on, okay? So if you go to File, User Preferences, and you type in Ant, it's called the Ant Landscape Generator, okay? Just check that little box there, and then close it. And now if you go to Shift A, now you have a little landscape button. So click landscape. And oh, doesn't that look pretty? Yes. I know what you're probably thinking. It's yeah, it's mountains, but it's not really what you had in mind. If you press the toolbar, T for toolbar, that's where you actually get these options, okay? So this is just the default one it gives you, but you have all the options here to change the shape and look of the mountains. So we're just going to use some really basic settings here. I'm not going to get too advanced. We're going to increase the mesh size. Going to make that 20. Going to increase the subdivisions to 200. That's just to, yeah, basically make more vertices. The noise size needs to be around about 30. And you probably can't see anything now, but that's because the noise size is a lot bigger now. Main one is the shattered terrain. The type of terrain. Shattered is the one we're going to use. And we're going to change it to new Perlin type texture. And it's looking really, really flat now. And that's because the height of it is 0.5. So let's change that to 3. And yeah, you can see the top of the mountain there is very flat. That's because there's a plateau as well. So let's set the plateau to be 3 as well. Okay, well that's not bad. One thing I'm going to do though is change the fall off type to Y. Is it Y? Yes, it is Y. There you go. And that means that it's kind of, yeah, like it fades out towards that edge and then fades out towards the base, but then the edge of it stretches like right across. If you want no fall off at all, it just means it creates mountains across the entire plane. But yeah, we want it so it's sort of fading off at the beginning there. Okay, awesome. Once you've done that, we can go ahead and scale it. You'll note that once you do anything to the mesh, like scale it, move it, or anything, all those options disappear. And you're probably wondering, how do I get them back? Sorry, bad luck, you can't. It's just one of the things in Blender, like if you add a cube or something, or no, not a cube, that's a bad example. If you add a UV sphere, you can change all the segments and stuff, but then as soon as you move it, they all disappear, and then you're stuck with this object. So just something to keep in mind. Alright. So I'm just scaling that down just by going S and then Z. It's just moving it down a bit. Cool. Awesome. Now I'm going to give that the same material as the ground. So with the mountains there selected, I'm going to hold down Shift, right click on the ground, and then hit Control L and select Materials. And now it has the same material as the ground. So let's call it, what is that? Ground. I've got a big microphone here. I can't see the keyboard. Sometimes I mistype. That's my excuse. Awesome. I'm just going to move it up a little bit, keeping the rule of thirds firmly in your sight. Make sure that the sky is kind of taking up 1/3 of the image. And it's going to look a lot nicer that way. And yeah, let's go ahead and give that a render. See how it looks with the mountains. Shouldn't really be too fancy. If anyone's sitting on the edge of their seat, it's pretty weird. Okay, I mean you can see some repeating texture there, but it's not really going to be that obvious once we do all the rest of the compositing and stuff. So don't lose any sleep over it. All right. Now we're going to drop the sky into the background. Now normally you can add the sky just by going into the world texture settings and just add a sky there. Maybe we could do that. Yeah, I was actually going to put it in the background as a plane, and that's because I was going to do some fancy thing in the compositor, but we're actually going to be doing something else that... Anyway, I'm just thinking in my head now. Anyway, yes, let's go ahead and use it. I'm going to do it the world setting way, okay? So go to world, then go texture, click new, image, and this is again one you'll find in the zip. It's called image 5382. Very creative name. I thought for a long time what to call it, and that's what I decided. And go down here in the influence and check horizon. Okay, horizon. And I think everything else should be fine. Alright, actually I'm just going to move the mountains to layer 2 now and just do a quick render just so I can see how it looks with the sky. Alright, the other thing you need to do is go to the world settings and enable paper sky. give that a quick render. All right, so I'm not rendering the rest of the rocks now, just so I can see where it sits in line with the horizon. So you can see we actually want the sun to be up there, so we need to move the entire background upwards, so it yeah, it's like up there. So way to do that is in the texture settings. If you go to mapping, let's just set that to world so we can see it as it moves. If you yeah, just click the Y to go into the negative, you can actually move the background where it sits in relation to the scene. Let's just move that up a bit more. So I want the horizon to be almost in line with the mountains there. Let's just see how that looks. Oh, too far. All right, one back. Cool. Awesome. Now the texture is a little bit stretched because this is a widescreen dimensions of it, and the image is kind of a bit more squarish. But it's not looking too bad. It's not image destroying, so we're going to leave it. You can fix it if you want to do it in the compositor or add it as a plane or something. But it's not too bad, so we're going to leave that. And let's give that a quick render now with the rest of the scene as well. And then what are we going to do? Yeah, we'll drop in the cactus next. Okay.